Hello, welcome to How to Play Ascension Solitaire, a game for one player. This game comes to us from a Reddit post from the user Ender's Game, who had noticed in a book that he had picked up recently by Pierre Crepeau, this solitaire game called Ascension. Um, and it is pretty obscure, so if you want the source, it's not in the description. Go ahead and pause right about now. You'll have the first page of the rules, then the second page, and now the third. This is the only way you're going to see the rules to this game. It's not available online. So, my definition, this was obscure. You're going to leave the aces out. You're going to need 2 card decks, and then you're going to deal out under the aces 4 rows of 8 cards. And the thing about this game is you're going to have a plan, and whatever that plan is, you're going to have to look away to refill gaps immediately, and you'll forget your plan by the time you turn back. It's really aggravating. So we'll start the game off. We have to build the aces on suit to king in each suit. And in order to do that, we are going to take cards from the top row and place them up there if they exist. Now, the first 2 rows you will be able to build in descending order in alternating colors, red on black, black on red, in descending order, all the way down as far as you can go to a 2, in which then you'll build up onto an ace. And each time you have a vacancy, you must pick a card from the row below that vacancy to fill it up until you get to the Talon, and then you will take a card from the draw deck, the Talon, and place it on that final empty spot at the end. The filling up the vacancies immediately is what causes you to lose focus. This being a 2-deck game, it takes a lot of time each time you're filling up those vacancies. Whatever plan you might have will disappear from your head, so it is possible to lose this game. You'll lose this game when there's no available moves to be made. If you can't play a card on one of the aces, or wherever the foundations are currently at, if you can't make a move on the foundations and you can't pack in descending order off color, the game's over for you. You've lost. And a couple of times in the early times I was playing this, trying to get the rules down, I had lost a few times. So it's more than possible. So the second row is where we're building cards down, not any other row, just the second one. And we're only able to do that from cards that are on that second row or the third row. The third and fourth will not be able to be used for that purpose. You'll have to basically fill cards in from a gap in that case. So you're always trying to come up with a plan 3 or 4 steps ahead. What's your next move after this card? What's the best card to move up next? Is that going to come in play 4 or 5 moves ahead? And each time you're doing this, you're having that thought in your head, but the minute you have a vacancy, you have to fill it up, so it's very hard to get that plan, keep it, while at the same time trying to expand on it by seeing which card you need to bring up next. So it's a really, really interesting game. I found this to be a process that if you really had a long wait and you had the table space and 2 decks of cards on you, this is a really good time burner, because I want to say it took me about 30 minutes a game when I first was learning this, and most of that time is spent filling the gaps. And in that process of filling the gaps, you're really considering what card you're going to need to play 4 or 5 steps down the line. You want to make sure that you don't block yourself up, and it can happen. Sometimes you don't want to play to a foundation because you might need to move a card that's on that third row up to the second one. And if you play onto a foundation, you might not be able to do that with the cards below. So you're really thinking about a lot more than what would meet the eye. This does appear to be a simple solitaire, but depending on where the high cards are and depending on when you can get them up in the second row is going to determine a lot with this game. Do you try to build up on the foundations, or do you try to build up on the kings and queens and jacks and tens and whatnot? Do you move those higher value cards up, or do you go for something smaller? And that was somewhat of a challenge in this game. And it was surprising that I could not find the rules to this. Maybe it's listed in an alternate game. So potentially in the future, I don't know how long, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, if you do recognize this game and say, hey, this actually had an alternate name and I can't believe you missed it, go ahead and make a comment and I'll look it up. You might be right. So I just played that Jack of Spades to the foundation. And that left me with the red queen open. So now any black jack can fill that red queen, which I do have a black jack. So when you see cards moving to the foundation and you have a plan 3 or 4 steps ahead, you pretty much know this game is going. And as long as you don't have a vacancy, you don't have to immediately fill it, which is another good feature of this game, is that you're not worried too much about what you have to do. Other than just coming up with a plan and trying to remember that plan as it's time to execute it. That's really the toughest challenge of this. Other than that, you're going to get through it. And once you've figured out the sequence and how to memorize what you need to do, you'll probably win this game more often than not. Though the book itself said you had a 20% chance of winning this game. So who knows, maybe I might have had a process rule wrong, but I'm pretty sure I got it right. It seems to make sense in this fashion that you would build up the top, and then the foundations being on the top are the only thing that's different. And I think it's just designed to flow downwards towards that talon, and so you can fill the talons up onto the board. So that basically gives you 2 of each card in each suit. Basically 8 of each card in each rank. So there will always be 8 8s, 8 7s, 8 10s, 8 jacks, 8 aces. So that's the way you can card count on this. And it is a pretty interesting process. Like I said, a lot of time can get burned. So if you have a long wait, this is the perfect 2-deck game, I think, for really solving wait problems. And also short-term memory gets really worked in this game, because every time you move away to fill vacancies and consider what your plan for the vacancies needs to be, you start to forget what your plan for the foundations and what you have on the second row, what you want for the packs to be. And pretty substantially interesting choices to really make, to really consider, because you don't want to freeze up in such a simple game simply because your short-term memory got shot. And that's a very big possibility. So there I just moved that 3 of clubs back because I realized I won't be able to advance if I were to move that to the foundations. Because I needed to piggyback that 2 of diamonds onto the ace of diamonds. And you're going to get that a lot in this game. You're going to find situations like that where you have to do something, you have to give up a move in order to have a potential play in the future. So we're going to let this go on and let you follow along with your own eyes and see what you think, what cards need to be moved. And as you can see on these sequences, I was really pontificating what my next move would be. Because I'd seen I had a 4 of diamonds up at the top, and I had one in the bottom, the second to last row. And I didn't want to advance that 4 diamonds because it would not do me any use. I really start to have to consider more and more as the game progresses what cards I'm moving up and when they will be played a few moves ahead. So I pondered that king, and then I realized the jack would be needed before the king would, because that jack is in a suit that once a 10 of diamonds gets played, it will become available. And so it's better to have that jack up there to cause a vacancy than any other card. And you notice you can play multiple cards from the second row onto the primary foundational row, and unless there's a vacancy, no other real action immediately happens. That's where it might be advantageous to consider what your stacks have in them, if it might make more sense to play those first rather than cause a vacancy, because once you cause a vacancy, you have to fill it up. And apparently I had to change the battery a lot in this. That's why I had to keep getting up. And so now we're looking. We have a vacancy, but which card to fill? We do the 10 of spades, and then that immediately gives us the queen of hearts. So now we got a few moves figured out here, which is good. So now we'll go with that 8 of clubs. That opens a 9 of hearts, but there's nothing to play that 9 of hearts on. So now we have a vacancy to fill. So we're filling it with the best possible card that we think will work. Talon gives us a king. Got a vacancy. We fill that 2 up. That 2 will be played immediately. I'm pretty sure the 3 of clubs will be played after that. And we get another queen. And now our draw deck's empty, so now it's really critical to make sure you don't fumble. You've gotten this far into the game. Let's make sure our plan's going to work, that we have a place for every card and a card for every place, or whatever the saying is. And we'll just go from there. Looks like we're making some great progress. Kind of confused on which card to play first. Not sure if it matters at this point, but hey, this is the first time I've ever potentially won this game, so I'm going to be very, very careful here. So now I got a vacancy. I'll fill it with that 8. Now what to fill that 8 spot? Fill it with queen. Move that jack up. And there's our empty spot again. Now we'll put the 6 of spades in. Move some cards up. Now I realized I forgot the bottom row, so we'll just go ahead and fill both of those in. Inconsequential at this point. That's the other problem with this game, is you don't have the immediate showering of cards that you would have in other solitaires, because you have to fill up those vacancies, and it'd be the absolute travesty to fill up vacancies and not realize you had potential to do something else. Interestingly enough, that 8 of clubs could have gotten filled onto that 7 of clubs. I don't know why I didn't do that. I guess I got distracted. We're going some other direction now. Now we're focusing on the heart suit. Okay, there's that 8 of clubs. One of the times I played this, somehow a pack of 2s had gotten out of hand. And I shuffled the decks together, and I was doing really, really good. And I came towards the end of the game, and I'm like, man, how in the world do I not have any 2s? And I was genuinely puzzled. I was looking at. Then I looked over to my left. I have a separate table I keep stuff on. And sure enough, there's some cards there, and yeah, they're the 2s. So I played that game, got through most of it, almost won, only to find out I'd screwed myself. I couldn't overcome. And just like that, we have won the game. And so if you actually want to play something other than Solitaire, come to our subreddit, Card Game Meetups. Post your city, post what games you want to know. We're having more and more members join. Eventually, we'll have a public card game. And what better place to have a public card game than your local board game cafe? And if you're anywhere near Branson, definitely check out their board game cafe. And I want to let you know, we actually have somebody new in the description, New Venture Games. This man does a lot of pegboard games. I recently discovered he has a shut the box type game that we'll probably cover here in the future. And I want to thank today's musician, Adam Borsetti. If you have not checked out his channel, you are really, really missing out on some great quality music, instrumental and vocal. He has a great voice and has done some excellent covers. I highly recommend his instrumental music for your card game night. If you love the optimism of the 1980s, whether it was the economy, music, movies, the absolute optimism that carried over from the 1960s to the 1980s when America was coming back and things were looking good. Adam does this with his music because he has that synthesizer sound that produces a lot of optimistic music. It makes you feel like you have a future, that's a good future, and that things are going to continue to improve. And that type of music has kind of gone out of favor, but if you listen to some of his instrumental stuff, like the song you've heard tonight, like the piece of music you've heard tonight called Waiting, which I figured is a perfect song for a solitaire game, you'll know the type of talent and type of work this guy does. And right now, he needs your encouragement. He's going through a creativity block right now. He hasn't really produced a whole lot of new stuff. So do go to his channel and leave a comment. Let him know how much you appreciate his hard work and music. And let him know that you are keeping him in your thoughts and daily considerations and prayers, that he does start feeling better and that he does get back to being creative. Because he has some excellent music. In a sane and rational world, his music would be selling, it would be on the radio, but we don't live in that type of world, do we? So do check out Adam Borsetti. He has some excellent music, and do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next video.